We learn from elders. We learn from survival. We learned from each other.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trans Guys. Again,
wisdom you can feel. Real talk.
I'm Zander.
Collective care.
And I'm JJ.
Oh boy,
Redo.
one of these days we're gonna get this. Okay. Well,
I thought JJ was going right. I thought that was the order. So I get it wrong. I don't know.
But what do you do? What do you do?
I'm the old guy. You can just blame it on me.
Okay, great. You guys,
Cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm. After you shared about all of your degrees, it's harder and harder to like blame it on the cognitive decline. But I
no
like
idea how I did that.
All right. Well, for those who are listening, if you didn't know me before this podcast, it's confession time. I grew up in South Dakota, which, you know, it's not that bad for confessions as they go. So what that has meant for my life, if you're not familiar with the politics of South Dakota, and let's be honest, how many people know about what's going on in South Dakota, aside from the fact that there's Mount Rushmore and that the major highway that drives east to west across the United States or north to south intersects in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's about the only thing people know about where I grew up. South Dakota is the place where if someone very, very conservative wants to change a long-standing Supreme Court ruling, they will be the first place politically to make a law that very extremely prohibits something for the explicit purpose of bringing that issue all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so, like any extreme law you've probably ever read about that is extreme about women's reproductive rights, about trans people, about people being mad they have to wear helmets on motorcycles, probably came out of South Dakota. Now, the good thing about South Dakota is it's a very like live free or die state without that motto on a flag, in that like if you are a kind person who pays your taxes, even if you're grumpy about it, and you like do enough hard work that like you mow your lawn often enough, for the most part, you can be considered a decent and kind human being. But if you are a trans guy like me, even when I was there in college in 1998, it was true that the hospital could let you bleed out and die if you were trans and did not have to care for you. Now, there was a period of time where that all changed, but now it has sort of circled back. And all of the hospitals in South Dakota are Catholic and do not have to treat trans people. So when I travel there to visit my family, I literally bring a very thick binder. And in that binder is a letter from my kids' school saying that they are safe and healthy and have been observed as being cared for. We bring letters from therapists. We bring letters from my work saying that people have observed me as being kind and an upstanding person, because it is possible that someone could just report me to CPS simply for being a trans person and try to take my kids away. Being in South Dakota, I've heard people tell me they think all trans people, 100% of them, are serial killers. And that if trans people are respected, then there will be people in schools. Someone said, I know for certain there's a school in South Dakota where kids have said they identify as cats, use litter boxes, and want milk to come out of the water fountain. Now, the person who said this was one of the kindest, most well-meaning people who loves trans people and all LGBTQ rights, but they literally thought that there actually was a school in South Dakota where someone had wanted that. Now, am I saying that there's not a place somewhere in the world where someone could identify in any way they want to? Of course, I'm not saying that, but there was not, in fact, a school in South Dakota where that was happening. And so it has been very liberating for my personal life when in the year 2000, I drove across the country. Took me less than 2 days, which is not how long it should take you to drive from South Dakota to Berkeley, California. Because I drove through the night in ways that even truck drivers aren't allowed to drive these days. And it has been a very helpful thing for me personally to be able to detach from some of the wacky headlines of the world, to know that I currently live in San Francisco, California. And even if some of those laws do become entrenched in other parts of the world, that at least I'm safe here. Like in San Francisco, we have a law, thanks to Jameson Green, that means that I can have health care. We have a law that says no matter what happens, I can choose the bathroom I want to use. And if someone tells me I'm in the wrong bathroom, that person is the one who can be sued for discrimination, not me, right? And so there are a lot of rights. San Francisco is a sanctuary city. We can argue about whether or not that means a whole hill of beans or not. It's a city that declared they were going to end trans homelessness. We can argue about whether or not they actually even tried. But there are ways in which I am safe here that I'm not safe in other parts of the world. And I have traveled to a lot of places. I have tried to navigate leaving a place while there was a war happening, and it was even doubly harder to leave that space because the number of places I could fly to was limited based on their policies that they execute trans people, right? And so like across the globe, very privileged no matter where you live in the United States, even with all that's going on these days. And so like, I just thought it's such a common story throughout different decades. What is liberating about relocating? And there are folk with very different like political standpoints along this podcast. And we probably won't get into most of those viewpoints just because we're here to be like trans guys, not to like start dumb internet fights. But there is something that can be very liberating about relocating. And in a time and in a space where many people are fearful of relocating or worried about what is changing in their area, I just thought maybe like talking about some of the story. I know both of you also have experiences where you've relocated and it's been liberating for your life. And I wondered if you would just like share a little bit about that. JJ, where did you live previous to coming back to the Bay Area?
In Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, actually. Now, the irony is I'm originally from San Francisco, and I did not recognize fully my queerness in San Francisco. And then I moved to Los Angeles. I did not recognize my queerness in Los Angeles. No. I had to come out in Texas, of all places, in Dallas, Texas. And it was my curiosity that kind of got the better of me there to figure out who I am and finally feel liberated about having my own kind of independence in life. And I got curious on the internet. Now, realize when in the year 99 to 2000, I went and got a degree in computers. And back then, the internet seemed like you could find anything you wanted as long as it was posted, right? As long as it went onto a website or was on a board, you could find all kinds of information. And I thought the world continued to work that way some 20 years later. But it did not. Actually, in Texas, it was devastatingly hard to find anything about trans needs, healthcare, surgeries. Literally, the internet was filtered. And I didn't fully understand the length of filtering that a state or a ISP could have done to it until I came to San Francisco. And I didn't even know in Texas that gender affirming care as a level of or a type of medical care had even been fully established as a thing because it was so isolatingly filtered on the internet. And I would go to my medical care provider at that time, OBGYN, and they would be like, you know what? I'm going to humor you by giving you some testosterone cream. And I was like, that's fantastic. Thanks for seeing me. I feel so seen and heard. And this little tiny testosterone cream is going to make my day. I'm just so happy. And by the time I got to California and shared that with my now gender affirming care doctor, she laughed at me because she's like, that isn't even prescribable in the state of California for any level of gender affirming care. It's not a thing. And in Texas, it was the only thing. And I was very clear that I wanted, transitioning and I wanted help with that. There were no options for me within my medical care. So my mind was blown when I came to California to recognize that how filtered, and we just don't know it until we relocate, right? Like that liberation of fully understanding when I got to California how closed off everything had been, how lied to I had been, even when I was working in medical care places, was profound. And in a lot of ways, I think some of the rules, until we're talking about them in kind of a free, open kind of way, some of the rules feel intentionally gaslit, right? Like I felt so much moral injury by all those different communities that are designed to help and keep me whole, that are designed to ensure that I have proper mental health care. All of them were basically telling me I didn't have the right. And more than that, I wasn't even allowed to know that there were options. That's really profound. So I think I am grateful to be home back in my original hometown. There's so much about San Francisco that is so incredibly rewarding. I just did a walking tour, a history walking tour. I've mentioned that before, for somebody who is a psychiatrist in Georgia. And was here for a conference and wanted to better understand like what is going on in San Francisco. It is the only city that has a transgender cultural district. And what does that mean? And why do we care about that? And so she was very curious. We walked through kind of all the socio-political, economic, healthcare, different aspects that kind of fit into this 3-block radius. And while all that's fantastic, and I see trans people, I kid you not, on the bus every day, and I'm just mesmerized by the idea that here we are and we're just sitting next to each other and everything's so cool. There's still a lot of limitations to what trans people can do for work, what they can do with healthcare, all of the different aspects. There's still a lot of wisdom and knowledge that I have to know and teach myself so that I can teach the people who should be treating me well. So relocation can liberate to a point, and I'm grateful that it has, and I'm looking for more. And so I wonder, Zander, if you've got some thoughts about how that's impacting you.
Absolutely. Thanks, JJ. Well, I'm going to talk about a very specific experience that I had. I grew up in California, in Los Angeles. I came out as, lesbian when I was 14. I was out in high school. I was basically out in the military. So I never really had the experience of not being out. So that's a level of I don't know. I'm not going to use the P word, but advantage perhaps that I had. Even though I was growing up in a Mexican Catholic family, I didn't have, even within the family, any kind of restrictions on that. So I'm very, I'll say blessed. Let's use that kind of language. But I started testosterone to begin my medical transition in 2005, and I was living in San Francisco, and I was part of a group. It was like an FTM discussion support group that would meet at, I think it was called Muddy Waters coffee shop on Church Street. It was a great time, and people would drop in like Maxwell Valerio and Red Jordan Orbito, and so it was people that historically are known within our community. And one of the things that I noticed was that because there were so many trans people and genderqueer people, that was the language at the time, and basically like gender bending, gender nonconforming people, as a trans guy, I would get clocked all the time. Like everybody just kind of knew I was trans. And I didn't like that. It didn't feel safe because it's, San Francisco is not Oz, right? There are hate crimes against trans people in San Francisco. There's prejudice. It's not, I run into people all the time who moved to San Francisco from all across the nation thinking that it was going to be some, I don't know, Xanadu. They were going to be able to have this wonderful life free of all friction. And it's like, absolutely not. And it's really expensive. So they'd last about 3, 4, 5 months, and then they'd get out and go back home and figure out how to just, live where they can live without going into debt. And that it's not a safe haven completely, right? Things happen everywhere. But I didn't like this feeling of being clocked everywhere I went. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term clocked, it just means people knew I was trans. They would make comments about it, not negative, but it would come up in conversation. So I had the opportunity to, 3 years into my medical transition, to move to San Diego. My wife was going into her clinical pastoral education training program, year 2. And so we moved to San Diego, and I love San Diego. I grew up in LA, but my mother was in San Diego. So I went back and forth. I served in the military in San Diego. I love San Diego. It's basically my favorite place on the planet. And one of the things about San Diego is that it's a fairly, I don't know if I can call it purple. It's a purple place, right? There are liberals and conservatives. It's a military town. It's a college town. It's a beach town. Right. But it's also has some rural parts, farmland. It's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful place. But in San Diego, no matter where I went, I was a guy. I was just a guy. And that helped me, because I think that always being clocked and always being seen as trans, and then being part of trans community in the way that I was at the time in San Francisco, like facilitating the FTMI discussion group, and then it turned into the Lou Sullivan Society discussion group. And this goes back to another episode talking about friendship and developing friends. People would come to the group to get information, to get resources, and then they would move on. And so I would invest a lot of time in people because they had questions, but once they got the answers to their questions, they just moved on. So I wasn't really developing friendships in those settings. And I was finding that I wasn't able to, I don't know, become the trans man that I've become now. I was sort of held in a place of providing other people with information, providing other people with resources. And this is even before I became a social worker, right? So it's just it's my default setting to help people. But being in San Diego gave me the opportunity to, wherever I went, I was just some guy. And then I could figure out, like, oh, okay, well, what kind of guy am I? How do I want to be in the world? Are there parts of me that I can improve? Are there parts of me I can change? Are there parts of me that I really like and I'm going to keep? Am I going to change the way I dress? The answer is no, I did not. I just basically dressed the same as I did when I was a big old dyke. And that suits me fine, because I was, I guess, wearing men's clothes, whatever that means, right? But that for me was a type of liberation, like an internal liberation of freeing from having to be in the spotlight, and I don't mean like this, right? We're in the spotlight. We're doing a podcast, but it's different now, 21 years into transition than it is 3 years into transition. Right? It gave me the opportunity to develop into the person that I've become. Because although I thought I knew exactly what life would be like as a guy, I got to tell you, I had no idea. And I wrote about that in my piece in the Letters from My Brother's book, right? That I thought I knew, but I didn't know. And we don't know. We suspect and we hope and we project, and because the uncertainty is no fun thing, right? It's uncomfortable to be in that uncertainty. But being able to go to San Diego and be in other people's certainty that I was a guy created a sense of relaxation in me, right? So it was personally, intrapersonally relaxing. And that made all of the difference. That gave me an opportunity then to think about, oh, well, what do I want to do? Like, I had never thought really about a career. I just went to school. I didn't think about a career. So I got to thinking about things. I was sure I was married, but like, how am I going to really be in this relationship? So it freed me up. I wasn't having to focus on transition and navigating the streets and helping people. I got to just be me. And that in and of itself is really liberating. So now, right, I put my oxygen mask on, right? So now I can be of service because now I'm set, right? I'm settled in and I have the bandwidth, I have the energy and the interest still in the and the ability to be of service. So for me, that's a type of liberation that I hadn't considered, previously. How would I have known? So I just, I say to you, like any kind of assumptions you're making, any kind of certainties you're holding, any kind of, fast and hard rules that nobody can break, like maybe hold open the possibility that something different might actually be working in your life in the future that you haven't experienced yet, and be open to that because you never know. I'll close with saying that one of the things that I learned through mentorship that I pass on all the time to people is some of the people that I expected to be very cool with my transition were not. And some of the people I thought would not be cool turned out to be very cool, right? So the assumptions we have about people based on whatever it is, their faith, their politics, their sexual orientation, where they've come from, we really don't know. Megan, you talked about that. You talked about, right, some of those friendships, right, breaking off because, I mean, you joked about it saying because there's a beard on your face, but this really does happen that we make assumptions about, oh, these are my lifelong friends. Maybe not. And that's okay. It hurts. There's grief that comes with it, but that's life. That's life.
And I always thought like as a mantra that like, because I've always done very like traumatic jobs, like, cause my whole work life has been caring for the homeless and hungry and people at the intersections of injustice and kind of like LGBTQ advocacy. And I've always thought like, you can either have chaos in your work life or in your home life, but you can't withstand both, right? That's what I've sort of felt like. And what this conversation is reminding me, and just even like in general, your life, Zander, is like, maybe it's 3 spheres, right? It's your work life, it's your home life, and then it's where you live. Because if maybe you have 2, it doesn't matter where you live, and you can happily relocate to lots of different types of places. Now, obviously, the places you've relocated to kind of over the last more than 20 years that I've known you, none of them are terrible, yucky places. They all are kind of fun. But I do think that there is, like, my best guess is that people who tuned in because they saw the title of the podcast, if you are like thinking about should you relocate because trans laws are hard where you are, or you think it's about to shift, what I really want to say to you is, if you've got a great family life or a great friend life, if you've got a great job, it's going to be easier to navigate some of the weird laws. And believe me, I've seen a lot of weird laws. I've seen a lot of worse laws. I've seen some better laws, right? You can navigate a lot of crap if you've got a great work life and a job, like a boss who supports you and you're very certain you're not going to get fired. Like, and you can navigate a lot of crap if you've got good community, good family, chosen family, blood family, whatever your combination of making that work is. Sometimes you can navigate laws easier with those connections than without those connections. And so if you're bringing your community with you when you relocate, awesome. If you're intentionally going to build those connections where you're going, awesome. But it can be really hard if you found the right place, but now your job's at risk and is hard and you hate it, or you don't have that community family connection or the love life that you've always wanted. And so like, that's just what I would like offer up. Like, I can't give you any right answers whether or not you should move. The fact that you're watching this means you're probably going to, like, you're thinking about it real hard. But if you want me to tell you, like, no, stay with the safe stuff you've got, I can say my mom was a bank teller my whole life, worked the same bank from age 18 until she retired. And so, yeah, financial security, if you've got it, keep it. It's not a thing most trans people get to have, especially trans men. And so, like, I just want you to know that, like, if you choose to continue living in a hard place, like, we're going to keep having these conversations so that you can at least have some connections that will make it a little more bearable until whatever this is becomes something different. And it always does change. So we're here for you. The other thing I was hoping you would say just briefly as we end, Zander, is like you've got some new wisdom material out that might help people kind of navigate some of these things. Do you want to tell people about it?
Sure, thank you. And then also, I think JJ should mention briefly about the keeping the conversation going meetings that he's going to be leading. Yeah, so, a couple of years ago, I wrote a book called The Third Space, A Nonconformist Guide to the Universe. And it was just me detailing basically how I navigated a fairly tumultuous and people would say maybe traumatic life. And then also just navigating the ups and downs of being a nonconformist in many ways. It's not just my gender that's nonconforming. I just, if you know me, you know what I'm talking about. Or Google me, you'll find out. I just don't conform to the expectations of other people. And I don't do it as some sort of contrarian thing. If it doesn't resonate with me, I'm going to use JJ's word. If it doesn't resonate with me, I'm not doing it. And I'm not going along with it. I'm just not. And so that puts me at odds a little bit with some people in some parts of our community, the trans community, if there's really such a thing. I don't really think there is. But so I decided, well, what can I do with this, right? My day job is teaching these tools and strategies, but I do it in the corporate world. So I thought, how can I bring it down to the sort of everyday level, to people? So I started an Instagram page, which is a big deal for me because I'm not a social media person. And you can see there under my name, it's Third Space Wisdom. And I just share every day just a little bit of wisdom that comes from this idea of being in a third space, right? Making our own space. We've all done that. We all live in a third space because we have transitioned, whether it's medical or not, maybe it's only in our minds. We're living in a third space. We're doing things that other people don't want us to do, don't like us to do, don't expect us to do, is forbidden in some places. And so if it resonates with you, right, this idea of just being in a third space, in a liminal space, and you're interested in picking up some strategies, some tools, some skills with how to navigate through that, you can get little tidbits every day on my Instagram. I just put I don't know, what do you call those, little picture or something? Meme, what do you call it, kids? Right, whatever, the thing with the picture with the words.
Post. It's a post. And it's got words and it's going to uplift you and you can check it out if you want to.
Yeah. And so, you can find out more about that. And then I have a podcast called the Third Space Podcast on Substack. And then you can listen to my interviews where I talk to other people who are nonconformists, who are doing really great work in the world. And I find inspiring. And so I thought I'd, share those inspiring stories with all of you. So please check that out. And then JJ, let's hear a little bit about the continuing the conversation work that you're going to be doing with our listeners.
Well, I love the idea. Thank you so much, Zander, for all the work that you're doing. And I love the idea of being able to take some of your tidbits and having more conversation about it, whether it's the conversations that we've had here or things we learn from Third Space Wisdom or just things we bring to our own table, so to speak. So we're going to extend the table a little bit to some conversations on the regular. If you would like to join them, please type yourself in the bottom. Let us know that you're interested, and feel free to check out our website, transitionalwisdom.net, for more information about when we're setting those up. I think right now we're planning to have them kind of on the regular. So keep an eye out for when we set those up and dates and times. And if you want to get more involved or help in any particular way, feel free to fill out the form at the bottom of transitionalwisdom.net, and we will keep in touch. I appreciate it. Well, Megan, you want to bring us home?
Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all those things. That's the thing I'm supposed to tell you. But just more importantly, I hope that you take a moment, like notice that you have feet and that you are in a room and that you're safe right now, I hope. And just know that you're not alone as you're kind of navigating this journey. There's at least 3 guys here who are rooting for you and celebrating you and hoping that you make all of the connections that you are longing for. And so you're not navigating this by yourself. We're so appreciative for the community that's sort of starting to grow from this podcast, and we'll be chatting with you more. Take care, everybody.